And we should be live. Hello, everybody. Back again for another stream. This one's gonna be quick, hopefully. I know I said that before, but hopefully I want to cap this at like 90 minutes. But anyways, first things first. Let me find. Well, let me get the stream link and then send out the community post. I want to cap this. Okay. Bam. Or that should be good. And post. Okay, there. Yeah, I got Ashley Graves this time for the sexy image. You'll see why. You'll see why. Man. Let me just make sure. Yeah, it looks like everything's fine. Oh my god. I always get these issues about how my internet connection sucks on stream. Hopefully it's not too bad for you guys. There's nothing I can really do. Because I just... you know, it's crazy. I just have a really shit internet connection, okay? There's nothing I can do about it. But anyways, though, I guess we'll just get started. So, this was making the rounds on Twitter. Kadokawa scapegoating Isekai for ruining anime. And we'll just watch the Chibi video.
How it feels to chew 5 gum.
Okay, turn that off. You know, I always get the goofiest recommendations. Because I don't actually use this, you know, channel personally. I only use this for, you know, making videos and stuff. So I just get like I just get a bunch of random crap. Anyways, we're just gonna do the Chibi one. It's not too long. Anyways, let's go.
Of the anime industry's profitability is being linked to the Isekai genre, and I'm not joking, this is a real headline that came out today. Kadokawa cites excessive reliance on the Isekai genre as one of the major causes of the decline and profitability in its domestic publishing business. This is really crazy, honestly, and I wonder if this has anything to do with the news that came out a few days ago about...
Yeah, so, I mean, this already seems kind of... I mean, a lot of people really hate Isekai. I've never had an issue with it, really. I mean, look, I'm not an Isekai fan. I just don't watch it, you know? So, people complain about too much generic Isekai. It's like, I mean, whatever. I guess, look, for me it doesn't matter, but...
Kadokawa CEO. For those that need a brief little rundown, I'll make it 20 to 30 seconds. Basically, a few days ago, the largest shareholder that has shares in Kadokawa, Oasis Management, that is a Chinese activist hedge fund, they wanted to replace the CEO of Kadokawa because of, you know, the direction Kadokawa is going. And this news came out a few days ago. And then now we got this news that dropped this morning, and I wonder the reason why Oasis Management tried to do what they did, for instance, do a hostile takeover and remove the CEO of Kadokawa, was in part thanks to this information that just came out, because
you know, now that's pretty wild. I don't keep track of these office politics, so I don't know if I should be standing for this Kadokawa CEO or not. I mean, them getting taken over by some Chinese company isn't exactly a good omen, but I mean, at the same time, I'm just against... I mean, Kadokawa just before this has just been, you know, trying to globalize anyway, which has an entirely different host of issues. You know, at least the Chinese are kind of based.
I would assume they would have access and information to all this type of stuff prior to us, so most likely the reason why they made that decision or wanted to remove the CEO is because of this decline of profitability. Now, we do need to talk about, like, what this overall means, if this is good or bad, and obviously, when you look at the cold hard statistics, this isn't a good look, I'm going to be blunt with you, but we do need to look at what this necessarily means for not just the future of Kadokawa, but for anime, manga, and honestly, the Isekai genre. And anime and manga adjacent to it. What does this fundamentally mean? Well, first off, we gotta look at just the trend in the 2020s. There has been a massive shift away from just like reincarnated or transported like stories and stories that are like SAO. I mean, when you go back into...
Yeah, he's kind of right about this. People are saying, I mean, Isekai is still strong, but it's definitely becoming less dominant than it was.
the 2010s, Sword Art Online was one of the most popular series of the 2010s, and alongside of Attack on Titan, obviously. But SEO really caused, like, I think, a mass, like, beginning of just fans of that type of content. And thanks to the overwhelming popularity of Sword Art Online, it caused a lot of copycats. It caused a lot of series that would have never been looked at and potentially got an anime adaptation to actually get an anime adaptation because of the popularity of SAO. In part, you could thank the reason why SAO is so popular to why eventually you might have gotten, like, for instance, a Mushoku Tensei anime, a ReZero anime, an Overlord anime. You get the point. SEO was very significant and culturally impactful to just anime, manga, and light novels in general. And obviously, it's been like, oh man, it's 15, 16 years since SAO kind of came out. It's been a very long time. And in the last, like, few years, finally it seems like the Isekai, like, craze, with all the different manga, anime, and light novels that come out, has started to slow down considerably. Now, it's not completely, like, dead stop. There's not nothing coming out. You still get basically an Isekai series every single season. But, like...
Man, you know, what's the next thing that tourists are going to complain about after the Isekai's done?
5 years ago, 6 years ago, when there's, let's say, 30 anime that would come out for an individual season, about probably 15, 10 of those would be just isekai. That's what they would be. And so there has definitely been a significant downturn of interest in the genre or companies wanting to make that type of content. Now, I'm not saying that the quality of the content has degraded and it's bad, but there is a lot of the same. And shifting through the garbage to find the gem and diamond is pretty difficult sometimes. But when you do, you find some of the craziest things that you've ever read. It's one of the big reasons why I love the genre in the first place, because they can turn a very wacky concept like, oh, I was reincarnated as a fingernail, and then all of a sudden it's one of the best series you've ever read. It's just stuff like that is why I love that type of stuff, and why so many people even engage with it, because it is very unique, and it can turn something so wacky and unhinged into something that is breathtaking. So, when you look at this entire statistic, it makes sense from a business perspective on why the actual reliance on isekai has actually been a net negative for Kadokawa, because obviously when you oversaturate a market, you give so much, eventually people will not want to engage with that content as much because there's just too much. Like, if you put an entire buffet in front of someone, okay, they'll...
I mean, look, it's true, right? There definitely is an oversaturation, I would say, even if you do like isekai, right? But, you know...
eventually not be able to eat the entire buffet. They'll just choose.
I think one of the reasons why there was so much isekai, I mean, there's marketability too, but you can also just kind of have crazy premises much more easily have them. So for, you know, like a slice of life, right? A lot of slice of life shows are kind of samey, and, you know, because it's slice of life to the extent that you can make the premise wacky, you're kind of limited in how wacky it can be. But, you know, for an isekai, you kind of just can go completely off the rails. You know, you can go I mean, there's an isekai where a guy gets reincarnated as a vending machine. Okay, that's about as wacky as it gets, right?
A few things, and that's about it. For instance, they'll pick their main things that they care about, let's say like ReZero, they'll care about Overlord, Mushoku Tensei, and they won't care about all this new stuff because they've already found what they like, and they don't feel like venturing into something new, and that most likely is one of the big significant reasons what is actually causing this profit loss. Now, I do want to read this article and actually kind of discuss what's being said here and what Kadokawa actually reported. So last week, Japanese manga, anime, and gaming publishing giant Kadokawa announced its consolidated
Nikkei lifetime revenue tops $1.3 billion. Oh my gosh, man. That's crazy. I swear, gotcha. These big gotcha games are like money printing machines. Damn.
Earnings results for this fiscal year ended in March 2026. According to the report, the company suffered a 51.3% decrease in operating profit compared to the previous year, driven...
Yo, that's actually crazy. 51% decrease?
By the poor performance of its core publishing and IP creation business, a 51.6% decrease in the operating profits from year on year. This is absolutely a significant number. Like, this is a number that you literally cannot ignore. Like, I'm just gonna be honest. From a business perspective, if you were looking at a 50-plus profit loss, that is a red flag. That is a flag that needs to be addressed. Regardless if they address it in a good or a bad way, it is definitely something that is a red flag for a company when they have a 51% decrease in operating profits. That is...
Man.
I've heard many things
Holy
about the
shit.
legendary.
Bruh. Okay.
Significant difference.
There we
so
go.
anything of that magnitude will need to be addressed, and something needs to be blamed for it. From company corpo speak, something has to be the reason to why this happened. Was it poor management? Was it not advertising the series properly or releasing?
You know, the thing I find crazy is that, you know, the anime industry, you know, record profits, record sale, or it should be record profits, because the whole thing is that half the anime industry's revenue is coming from overseas these days. Yet they're still having all these financial issues. Look, when anime should be cheaper to produce than ever because you have, you know, more globalization, you have better tools, and, you know, they're getting more revenue than ever because of, again, globalization. Somehow they're still having all these issues. Like, you have freaking tons of anime studios shutting down. And now Kadokawa's 51% decrease. I mean, there has to be some kind of insane mismanagement going on.
The proper series, whatever the case may be, something has to take the blame. In this case, that is exactly what happened, as Isekai anime and light novels and stuff were the ones that took the blame for this operating profit loss. Now, is that true or not? Who really knows? The point is that is what is getting the blame. Now, in the recently published...
I don't know, it would be interesting to actually look into... I mean, look, whenever something like this happens, companies always try and find, like, a scapegoat, you know what I mean? Let's say... So, I mean, who exactly knows? Like I said, you have to dig into their numbers. I'm not sure if it's publicly available, but
midterm
maybe.
management plan for the period of FY 2026 and FY 2031, Kadokawa cites excessive reliance on existing winning patterns as one of the major factors contributing to the decline in profit across the publishing sector.
Well, yeah, definitely a factor. Look, the whole thing, you know, oversaturation in the market is always an issue, you know? You know, it's kind of, but, you know, another problem is that, you know, if you do focus on that one strategy, oftentimes you end up getting, you know, a decrease in standards, less creativity over time too, right?
This is a pretty big deal that indicates one big thing, is that Isekai is very popular, it's very successful, it has been proven time and time again, it works. I mean, let's look at, like, for instance, ReZero right now, it's the talk of the town, people are loving it, it's incredible. And a lot of these series that really are able to kind of be a smash hit, they go far. And obviously, I don't think they reach the same level as maybe, let's say, JJK or Chainsaw Man or Demon Slayer, but they are very, very...
Got lucky getting Anyas Digital today. Hell yeah. Or no.
Successful stories, and when you get all these little hits over and over again with these series that kind of explode and become their own community, it is very successful. It's a winning pattern that you should obviously keep trying to use. However, what Kadokawa is saying here is that the excessive reliance on a winning pattern will not always work, and they're finding out the hard way, very similar to what Disney and Marvel and just other companies in Hollywood have had to find out the hard way in the last, I guess, decade with everything going on in the West. And what I mean by that is that you go back, let's say, 7 years ago. Marvel and Star Wars, it was the talk of the town. Everybody was talking about everybody.
Well, yeah. You know, Marvel's probably the pinnacle of this. You know, it was one thing when the Marvel movies were actually good. But, you know, because, look, I think hypothetically a franchise could stay popular indefinitely. You know, oversaturation be damned. As long as it still remains good. I mean, I do think people are going to get bored to an extent. But the main reason why Marvel completely dropped off is because the movies just suck ass now. You know, whenever the next freaking Avengers, whatever the hell it's called, comes out, it's not going to be the same kind of cultural event that, you know, Infinity War and, what the hell was the last one? I never even watched the last Avengers movie. I only ever watched Infinity War. But, I mean, look, think about it. What Marvel movie since Infinity War and the other one has really been... you know, like a cultural phenomenon or a big thing? I guess a couple of the Spider-Mans. But I mean, even then, if we're talking, you know, lasting cultural impact, I mean, the classic Tobey Maguire ones are still bigger, right? So...
love Marvel. Everybody was fanboying, fangirling, loving Marvel. But they oversaturated it so much. They released so many super...
maybe Iron Man? Well, yeah, but... Didn't Tony Stark die in the last Avengers, though?
superhero movies and TV shows. Nobody could really keep up anymore, but also the quality just degraded entirely, and nobody really cared anymore. And obviously you had story and politics added in, nobody really cared for as well, and it just led overall to a downward spiral. They relied so heavily on a winning strategy that they lost sight of what people wanted, or just to try to innovate as well. And in this case, that's...
that ending is shit. Yeah, probably.
what Kadokawa was trying to say, is that they are relying so much on a winning strategy that they're not innovating, they're not trying anything new, they're not trying to make something that is even better as a winning strategy, and they're trying to figure out a way to shift away and actually create some form of new winning strategy, which I think in terms of corpo speak is actually pretty good speak. I think that makes a lot of sense from a business perspective.
Yeah, hopefully their diversification isn't taking on Westoid manga artists or something. Because they have talked about that before in the past.
You would want to have, multiple eggs in different baskets than all your eggs in one basket, aka the Isekai genre. So yeah, I fully agree with this statement, honestly. Now, specifically, the company has acknowledged a recent bias towards proven genres, such as Isekai and Naruke, inevitably leading towards market saturation and worsening profitability, which is what I just talked about. According to Kadokawa, the formulaic approach and lack of depth of content diversity is what's preventing its domestic publication business from exploring a new genre and taking on innovative projects. Literally what I just talked about. While Kadokawa has been actively implementing measures and hiring more editors in order to expand the number of publishing titles without bearing a load on its staff, this has also proven to negatively impact its business, leading to an increase in titles lacking originality or quality. To tackle the issue, the company will focus on rebuilding its genre strategy while implementing stricter criteria for greenlighting projects. Furthermore, a strong emphasis has been placed on the restructuring the publication.
Oh my gosh. The ads on YouTube are freaking out of control these days, man. Okay.
Yes. With the Publication Steering Committee being established in November 2025 as a system for implementing fundamental structural reforms. On a related note, in an effort to build a leaner and more efficient organizational structure, Kadokawa has also announced an early retirement program for its employees. Starting June 1st, the company will solicit voluntary resignations among employees age 45 or older who have at least 5 years of service. Employees who agree to retirement will get an additional severance package on top of the regular severance package, as well as an optional reemployment support. Now,
wow, early retirement. Talk about cushy.
Overall, I'm not going to really comment too much on this one, but let's talk about this. This is very significant. That really kind of gets
YouTube crashing my poor tablet with this mess, yeah.
into a lot of stuff. First off, the company is trying to restructure entirely and have more criteria, stricter criteria for what they release on their...
You know, it would be... They're basically just saying that they're trying to sort of pivot their direction, right? Which, I mean, sounds like a good thing for sure. You know, would be interesting to get some more creative stories, you know, experiment with some other genres, right? Although it is also concerning in some other ways, because I know, look, Kadokawa, they're a bit suspicious.
Their platform. And I think that in general, this makes perfect sense, because I'm going to be honest. I'm a fan of Isekai. I love dumpster diving between the different reincarnated and transported another world-like series. I am. But I will admit that there is an oversaturation. There is a lot of, just being completely blunt, dog shit. That is not good. They're not really good. They're not really thought-provoking. They feel like the carbon copy and paste work of something else you've read. They're just with different character names and like a slight shift a little bit with the setting. But overall, it's the exact same thing you've seen over and over again. And it seems like Kadokawa wants to shift away from that. And if they're going to greenlight these type of stories, they want to make sure that there is quality instead of quantity, which I think is perfectly fine. Because obviously, it's clear that people like the genre. People love ReZero, Overlord, they love Tanya the Evil, they love Konosuba, there's a lot of different series to choose from, okay? People love these stories, and it's proven that people want this, but people want high quality. They don't want the same old, and I think that fundamentally for the future of the genre, I think this is a good thing. I actually think having a stricter criteria is something that will benefit the long term. Now, will there be series that potentially have a lot of potential that gets just chopping blocked? Yes, that is definitely also a possibility. It's not entirely perfect, but I do think that in general, this will lead to higher quality series to release, so I am actually for that. However, how they implement the structure is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and here's the meat, okay? What exactly is their plan here for what gets greenlit? Because, you know, alternatively, they could just go in the other direction and get even stricter and then just only allow, you know, certain other... They could go in the other direction,
because,
too.
I mean, anything could go wrong here depending on how management operates and how they handle this implementation of structural change. But I think, in general, this is very fascinating news. I think the decline in profitability is definitely scary. Obviously, if you're someone that works, like, for...
You know, my real question is, how did profitability go down so much? Was there embezzlement or something? Like, did the CEO buy a private island with company funds or something? Because 50% over that's crazy. I don't know. I mean, what about... I mean, and a lot of their money comes from, you know, merch and stuff. I mean, is the merch sales dead or something?
Making light novels and anime like this, it might scare you, but I think in general, one thing that a lot of people are not factoring in here is it's about domestic publishing. So what that means is that it's about Japan. Now, obviously, this is very significant, but I think that one thing that's not being factored in is that this is not counting in the overseas market that is buying this type of content, because obviously the opinions for people in the West are vastly different from the domestic markets, and Japan obviously is able to access and read a lot of series that personally we're not able to read, and is not even translated in the West. So the oversaturation is probably even worse in Japan if you're actually able to read and write in Japanese. So,
You know, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the decrease in revenue is because of globalization. Because, you know, the thing with these companies is that, you know, you can split the anime audience into, you know, casuals and otakus. And I'm talking specifically about Japan, all right? And, you know, casuals, you know, they watch usually mainstream stuff like shonen or whatever, and they don't buy very much merch. But otakus, they watch a lot of the obscure stuff, they buy a lot of merch. So you sort of get this thing how, you know, the bulk of the revenue from the anime industry comes from a minority of the total people who actually consume anime. And to actually keep those people satisfied, you would need a very domestic-focused marketing business strategy. So, I mean, this is just a theory that I had. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, though, if, you know, anime's focus away from the domestic market and towards the global audience actually has decreased spending for, you know, these Japanese otakus. Yeah, good evening. Tanks a lot.
So I think in general it makes a lot of sense why the domestic publishing business is spiraling down, but I think that probably overseas it's probably having growth, but it is becoming very noticeable, and Japan has obviously always wanted to focus on Japan first, which is completely fine. They want to focus on their domestic business first before any profits, and I think that is the right way to go about this. So if they shift and try to do something different, I think that's completely fine. But I'm gonna leave it at that. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, how you feel about this news. Do you think this is good or bad news? Be honest, I'm legitimately curious to see what...
Alright, so that's the Chibi video. I mean, it's interesting how, you know, Kadokawa is just shitting on the Isekai genre, because it has been the bread and butter for quite a while. Although it's funny how he mentions SAO starting the Isekai trend. I mean, that's true, but it's funny because SAO, in my opinion, isn't even really a true Isekai. And not just because it's like a simulation. I mean, that's kind of a part of it, but, you know, it's just sort of the tone and the vibe is a lot different. It's really, you know, a lot different, especially when it started, but anyways, though, I mean, that's kind of it for that story. Next, we've got the story about the San Diego shooters. I haven't been following this because I don't really care that much, but what we know about the San Diego shooting victims, suspects, possible motive, and more. SAO is game anime. It's .hack started, yeah. It's really more like a sci-fi action or something rather than a true isekai or science fantasy action. It's weird. Anyways, so, yeah, 2 teenage gunmen killed 3 people at a San Diego mosque Monday. You know, I saw this, alright? And I was thinking, alright, wait. Moved on to Chinese cultivation trash, and I've never been happier. Yeah. I mean, it heard it's actually pretty interesting, so I'll give it a try myself sometime, I suppose. But anyways, I saw this news story, and I was just thinking, you know, what if? Alright, what if these gunmen are actually Mexican groypers or something? Okay, and then lo and behold, suspects Caleb Liam Vasquez. Man. I hope this has nothing to do with anime. Knowing them, they will blame it. I have bad news for you, man. Anyways, and then we have Kane Lee Clark. So actually, one of these shooters was some Mexican guy. And now this is from Twitter, and it turns out that one of them had a Steam account. I don't know which one this was, but here it is, surface level. They seem to be a very big fan of Ashley Graves. Alright, here it is. So, breaking news. San Diego showed a Steam profile. The games consisted of shooters, fighting games, visual novels, paradox, interactive, and rhythm games. Ashley Graves, for one, from The Coffin of Andy and Lele, is one of the major characters plastered around. So as you can see, unfortunately we don't have playtimes, but they didn't really even play a lot of the games based on, fuck, I hate being right, it's VNs. Weirdly enough, they weren't even much of a VN player. Alright, see, Steins Gate, they have 11 out of 42 achievements, so I haven't played Steins Gate, so is there multiple routes? I'm not sure. I mean, if we say there's 4 routes, that would presumably be 1, right? So they probably played like a quarter of the game. All right. And then they have this here, so they played some of Needy Streamer Overload, some of Neon White, none of Neo, none of the non-existence of You and Me. I think this is like a 2-hour RPG Maker game. All right. They played a lot of Project Diva. They have Hearts of Iron. Apparently, they were a big Hearts of Iron 4 fan, even though they have 0 achievements. You can explain this away, because in Hearts of Iron 4, you only get achievements if you're on the hardcore difficulty, or if you're not playing with mods, but it's kind of weird how he has none. Deltarune. And Higurashi. No achievements in Higurashi. They had this they uploaded this masterpiece. A bunch of other art. Ashley Graves Supremacy is a group they had, it looks like. Apparently this is from their manifesto. I don't know where to find the manifesto. Were you inspired by anything / anyone? Ashley Graves, Brenton Tarrant, John Ernest, William Luther Pierce, Ted Kaczynski, Timothy Mc... Oh, come on, bro. Timothy McVeigh was a fad. Take him off. And also Smodge. What the hell is Smodge doing on here? Elliot Roger. Matt Pat! What? What the fuck is Matt Pat doing on here? Oh my god. Matt Pat. Jeez. Markiplier. And All Saints whom I didn't name. What are your interests? Strategy games, anime, politics, Christianity, reading, military weapons history, the white race, wrestling, Ongazelig, a coffin of Andy and Lele, true crimes, visual novels, web novels, light novels, archery. Man, also wrestling. Not gonna lie, kind of gay. Yes, must blame fictional characters. LMFAO. I don't know. Is Ashley Graves the only fictional character on this list? I'm not sure. Well, it's funny though. Also, Ongazelig. Even more snippets. Bunch of anime art here. Some memes. Yeah, pretty standard stuff. And also his wish list. So he had a bunch of other games on his wish list too. Clannad, Umineko, Higurashi, Soul Calibur 6, Catherine, Steins Gate 0. And thread is done for now. What a shithole. There's a moral that we can all learn from this. Play video games, finish your VNs, and watch anime. LARPing is bad, and this is what it gets you. I have more Moe to watch. Love you. Take care. Yeah. I looked through his entire game list, and unfortunately you don't have, he doesn't show hours played, but there was only like 3 or 4 games out of 200 or something that actually showed, that he actually had a majority of the achievements in, which is pretty interesting. Let's see, is there anything else funny here? Not really. Yeah. So here is his profile. All right, quite the feast for the eyes. Oh, we see in the Girls and Panzer group too. And yeah, he also had 1 review. All right, Ashley is perfect. Man, this is definitely funny. Yeah, a bunch of other stuff here. A bunch of comments now, of course. And that's just his Steam page. Yeah, he's got a shit ton of games, apparently. Or Terraria. He actually had half the achievements in Me Side, so he played that one. He didn't have... I think he had 1 achievement in Baldur's Gate 3 or something. Yeah, most of these games he never even played. There's less games than I own. Jesus, I thought DTLC fans are crazy. I was wrong. Yeah, man. Oh yeah, he had all the achievements in Kindergarten too, for some reason. Didn't play BioShock, didn't play Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, didn't play this one. Yeah, so, I mean, we'll see how the media spins it. I haven't been following the story, so I don't know if they'll try and do this to... I don't know if they'll turn this into some kind of anime slander. I mean, fucking probably, right? I'm sure that'll be some kind of angle. Although, I mean, it is kind of funny, though. It is, but yeah, it's just so great. It's just ridiculous. Like, man. Anyways, though, speaking of LARPers, this was pretty funny. So, you had this person right here. Who should I level up, guys? They're showing off their Blue Archive account, okay, with all their characters. Except, look here. Oh, here's the exact same account that you can buy for $90 US. This person literally bought a starter account just so they could LARP. Okay? What the hell? Oh, there will be an article about the white supremacy themes in anime. Oh, just you wait. Man. Can't wait till we see that, okay? It'll definitely be some good content at least, so. Man, no. But yeah, this is next level LARPing. Literally buying an account. And I mean, look, you can look, exact same. Okay, even down to the energy and the pyroxene, even the exact same amount of credits. This is not only an account they bought, an account they just bought. The same user said Kyoko was a lesbian. Oh my god. What the heck? Shaking my head that sad. I played VA and Blue Sky for getting new phone and PC port. Number one Rosina fan. I've seen that post, yeah. I mean, what possesses somebody to even do this? You know? I mean, it's just so incomprehensible. You know what I mean? And yeah, here. It was, yeah, here's the original post. This came from Pancaked Bunny. But yeah, it literally is the exact same. They bought it just for this. For $90 too, man. Anyways, still speaking of Blue Archive, this is the new game coming from the ex-Blue Archive devs. And if you don't know the drama, then it's pretty wild. They literally just sabotaged the game, stole assets, and then tried to make a knockoff. But this is their new game, okay? Because their last one got canceled. People are very skeptical, rightfully so. However, okay, I was skeptical too. But I'm calling for a temporary armistice, a ceasefire, okay? Because before I'm a Blue Archive fan, I'm a Rosen Maiden fan. And, as you can see, this character is a doll, okay? Look at those joints, alright? So I will be playing this game purely for the doll character. Alright, rest assured I will protect you. A sort of temporary bodyguard created by the commissioner to protect the Shunin. Only information available about this identity is that its body is made of wood. Yeah, so I mean, we'll see. The game definitely looks interesting, although it's funny. Apparently, they didn't even apparently Dynamis 1, the company that made it, didn't even come up with the original idea, because in the trailer, they credit a different studio for the original idea. So, you have these guys, they dump Nexon, okay? And then they make a new game that's a Blue Archive knockoff, and then it gets canceled, and then they make another game based off an idea I bought from somebody else. Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, it is interesting. I mean, we'll see where this goes. It might not even come out, but I mean, you could talk about the whole thing. I'm not very impressed so far. I mean, it's pretty wacky. Let's see. Okay. This is apparently their mascot character. I mean, is this really the best you can do, man? What's up with having these ugly-ass mascot characters? I hate mascot characters, man. I'm playing NTE these days, and Tagito, look, he's just annoying, okay? Let's see here. Okay, no one's gonna be using these, man. Nobody. There's a comic. They're doing the same 4-panel comics that Blue Archive has. Oh, I guess we're getting some art. Okay, I mean, looks kind of generic. Artifact. And, oh yeah, and here's the only other actual character we have, this girl. Yeah, here she is. Hiwagashi Akari Ai. He looks like the average cartoon character. Artifacts, no more. Rona better than that, yeah. There's the MC. At the very least, they made the MC a man. Okay? That's kind of based. And let's see. Let's find this. Yeah, here's some concept art. The premise is super wacky. So basically, it takes place during a World Expo in Tokyo, which I think is a cool setup. I think World Expos are really cool settings that are very rarely used for some reason. And also there's a bunch of magic for some reason, but the wacky part is that's Tokyo 89. It's actually Tokyo 1889, and for some reason technology is just 1,000 years ahead for some reason. And also the Tokyo Tower exists, again for some reason, so I don't know, it's pretty weird. But, you know, we'll see. I'll probably at least, I mean, I'll play it at least, but, I mean, who knows. Anyways, what else do we got? Oh, shoot. 30 minutes. We're going through this kind of fast. I was thinking about watching this video, My Problem with Berserk. Let's see. Might watch this video today, Anime, the Global Medium. It's only 13. And I want to watch this Mother's Basement video, Avatars and Anime, F You Fight Me. This is kind of a continuation from last time about, you know, the late 2010s, the irony era, the beginning of the end of anime. And we'll save the political stuff for later, but we're going to start with the Mother's Basement one, because I think that's most interesting, and then we'll see what happens from there.
So with my ADHD, I find I learn.
Bruh. That shitty video I seen, it's not an anime Mother's Basement. That's the crazy thing, okay? I mean, people must have been very generous back in the day if they were seriously giving this guy a pass for saying, because not only does he say Avatar is anime, he says Steven Universe is anime. Okay, I mean, at least with Avatar you can say it's anime inspired. How the hell is Steven Universe anime? My problem with Berserk is that it has too much grape and yet not enough. Okay. Okay, that's funny. Anyways, though, let's get into this. Speed up, of course. And let's go.
Idea. Avatar, The Last Airbender, is an anime. Fuck you. Fight me.
On October 18th, 2016, A1 Pictures and Crunchyroll released Shelter.
Oh yeah, and this is Shelter from the last stream. Giga talked about this too. Apparently this was watershed moment back in the day about how some Westoid musician got A1 Pictures to do a music video.
A short animated music video for Porter Robinson and Madion's song of the same name. Shortly thereafter, it was posted to Reddit's r/anime community, where it would go on to become the third highest rated post in the history of the subreddit. It would also go on to be taken down because, as an r/anime mod stated, the specific definition we use to determine anime is an animated series.
You know, it's funny he whips out the nerd voice when his channel's literally called Mother's Basement.
Produced and aired in Japan, intended for a Japanese audience. This is a music video by an artist that contracted out a studio that happens to also produce anime. If A1 Pictures had produced an episode of SpongeBob, we wouldn't allow that here either.
Look, I mean, true. If A1 Pictures did a scene for SpongeBob, you wouldn't call, the scene, an anime. It literally sounds like comic book guy from Simpsons.
The internet flipped its collective shit at this because, of course it did. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. And within an hour of it being removed, the post was back up and rapidly...
Look, it's really not that ridiculous. We'll go into the specific definition later. I watched this whole video before because I was going to make a video on it, but
climbing the front page. Boy, I sure do wish that could happen for my videos once in a while. The takedown and reinstatement of Shelter was in itself a minor footnote in the success story of a popular and critically lauded ONA that was going to reach people with or without Reddit's help. But the flawed reasoning behind it speaks to something that is frequently a big problem for the anime community, especially for critics like myself. We don't really have a solid, workable definition of what anime is.
We do actually, Japanese animation, and we've always had it. The whole thing is that he's going to sort of, kind of dishonestly tear down the common definition of anime. Effect kind of strawmanning it, but we'll see. It's the first time seeing this video. Yeah, you weren't missing out on much.
We have a lot of different competing definitions, some of which are technical, like
Anime is a Japanese colloquialism which comes from shortening the word animation.
whereas others, like the one used by the Reddit community, are unworkably broken.
That might seem like a harsh indictment of something fairly innocuous, but consider the purpose of definitions. They don't really prescribe how we're supposed to
Yeah, my art is anime inspired, never will be anime. Exactly.
use a word.
Or it's just like how champagne's only made in France.
They describe how a word that's already being used is being used.
We knew what a YouTuber was long before Oxford added it to their lexicon. We didn't need them to tell us. And if your definition of a word is so narrow that it doesn't account for common or general uses of that word, or so broad that it encompasses things that the word never refers to in common usage, then it fails as a definition. The definition of anime offered up by Dr. Nyan Pasu fails to hold up to scrutiny on multiple counts, to the point where I feel the need to sit down and explain patiently how words work. Let's go through it point by point and see all the ways it fails.
You know, keep in mind, by the way, he's going with this Reddit definition, which I'm assuming was written on the fly instead of just, the actual one people use as in Japanese animation. And look, you could nitpick the specific definition of anime a bit. Yeah, that's true. But, I mean, he's basically just making a mountain out of a molehill, though. I mean, he's effectively trying to attack the concept of anime by going after this one Reddit mod. People like MBB, like the Japanese, said it's anime, then it's anime. I mean, he doesn't quite say that, but it's not far removed.
Point 1, an animated series. Okay, we're 3 words in and already the cracks are showing. Series precludes single-shot OVAs, web shorts like Me Me Me, and movies. By this...
I mean, keep in mind, by the way, when people say anime, like 95% of the time they're talking about a series. So, look, it's not exact, but, I mean, it is close enough.
definition, Spirited Away and Your Name aren't anime. Obviously, that would be stupid, so the definition must be wrong.
Keep in mind, by the way, 95% of the time when people say anime, they're talking about a series. 0% of the time when they're talking about anime, they're talking about Steven Universe, okay?
Point 2, produced and aired in Japan. Well, firstly, saying aired again cuts out theatrical and home video markets as well as the internet, so that doesn't work at all. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they meant distributed. I mean, the fact that they're this strict with a definition that they've worded this loosely is worrying in itself, but that's a different problem. And even making that concession, it's still awful. Produced in Japan means that we can't count shows like Bloodivores or To Be Hero, which originated in China.
Yeah, and most people don't actually include those as anime. I forget what the Chinese term is. Is it dong? I think Donghua's Korean. But yeah, people don't consider Chinese animated series to be anime. People used to joke and say, Cory in the House and Avatar anime. This guy takes it seriously? Yeah.
Or any show that was outsourced to Korea, which these days is most of them.
He says that, but the whole thing, Japan has been outsourcing animation work to other countries. But it's mostly just the bitch work, like in-betweens and stuff. All the actual storyboarding, the keyframes, the writing, the directing, that's all still in Japan.
As for requiring that an anime be distributed in Japan, well, that would actually include SpongeBob, since it has a Japanese dub. And if you say distributed first in Japan, then you end up excluding Space...
Actually, it wouldn't include SpongeBob, because according to that definition, it says created in Japan, so...
Dandy, which is super wrong, so yeah.
Space Dandy's trash, and so is Watanabe, so... Honestly, I'm fine excluding Space Dandy from the definition of anime.
Nothing about this point works.
And also, that is basically just a single exception, by the way. If we're talking anime that were first distributed outside of Japan, it's a very short list. Alright, so I wouldn't say a single exception would nullify the entire definition.
And then there's that intended for a Japanese audience bit, which is murky enough when you consider that more and more studios are aiming anime at a global audience.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a problem with that. Anime is made by Japanese people and for Japanese people. That's exactly why anime has its own unique identity. Why it warranted its own word from Westerners, its own term, because it was distinct enough. And this is what really shows that Mother's Basement is a true tourist, because he doesn't even have enough respect for anime to acknowledge that it's Japanese. You know, to him, there actually is no difference between, you know, My Hero Academia and Steven Universe or whatever. All right? To him, they are exactly the same. And how can you actually respect anime as its own thing if you don't actually consider it unique from all the other things?
For business purposes, but also explicitly excludes Stan Lee's Hero Man, Afro Samurai, which was a passion project for Samuel L. Jackson.
And, you know, you could dive into some of those, but I don't know. The thing with you could talk about Hero Man. I've heard Hero Man be described as the most American anime ever. All right, maybe I'll watch it sometime to really see. And, you know, with Afro Samurai, I think like most of the writing and directing was done by Westerners, so I wouldn't really consider that an anime either.
And The Big O Season 2, which was only made because of Cartoon Network.
And look, this is another thing. And look, I'll say this much. I wouldn't necessarily say an anime wouldn't be an anime if it's made in Japan but made for a global audience or something. However, it does bring up a very important point, because anime is the way it is because it's Japanese and made for a Japanese audience. You know, once you go away from that, then you start getting stuff that doesn't feel like anime. You know, like Hero Man, as mentioned. Like, A Will Eternal looks like anime, but it's Donghua because it's Chinese and not Japanese. That's just the way it goes. I mean, exactly, right?
All of those things are very clearly anime, and it would be beyond idiotic to say that the second season of an anime isn't an anime because it targeted a new audience and was produced by a new network.
I mean, would it really be that ridiculous? I don't know. What would be a good example of like a season 2 of something that completely, you know, changed direction? Because you do get that sometimes. You know, it's like how the pilot of Pawn Stars was this, you know, kind of gritty, realistic look at a pawn shop, and then you get the actual show, which is, you know, super sanitized, family friendly, basically just showcasing, you know, historical artifacts and stuff. So like I said, if the, you know, change in target audience does substantially change the tone and the writing and all that, you genuinely could make the, you know, you could very well make the argument that yeah, it's not an anime anymore.
So with all of those clauses stricken down, the only part of the definition that remains is animated, which happens to be what the word
Well, actually, Japanese is still there. Japanese animation, that's what stands.
anime means in Japanese.
Anime is a Japanese colloquialism.
Yeah, Digi, we know. Although, that is an interesting facet of this argument. In Japanese, anime refers to all animation, SpongeBob included, and
Yeah, bros never heard of loanwords.
that's an argument often used in favor of saying Avatar: The Last Airbender and shows like it should be counted as anime. But it's a weak argument, and not just because it's pedantic. What this argument is really about is whether shows like Avatar should be discussed in communities like our anime, or given the spotlight at anime cons. And yes, by that definition, discussion of Avatar should be allowed in anime communities, but that would also allow for discussion of SpongeBob and Mickey Mouse, which...
You know, he brings this up as some kind of ridiculous thing, but it's all nullified by him saying Steven Universe is somehow anime, you know?
most people would agree are totally off topic, and some would use that as a justification for disqualifying any American cartoon from ever being anime, which is equally pedantic and facetious.
How?
Anime is Japanese animation, and that's that, they'll say, even though their acceptance of Chinese-made anime totally invalidates that position. But
Does it like I said, no one considers those to be anime, though. Alright, anime-inspired, yes, not anime, though. So, you know, this is just a straw man he's setting up.
But even if you are in the camp that says Western cartoons can never be anime, you can't pretend that there's no distinction. Because when I say the phrase American anime, it describes a specific group of shows, and you know exactly what shows I'm talking about.
Look, if I say that Prosecco is Italian champagne, okay, you understand what I'm talking about. That doesn't mean we can now redefine it as champagne. Hot take, as a kid, Avatar was cool shit. Nowadays, as an adult, it's lame. I don't know. I don't think Avatar really has aged super well. I do think it's a solid show, but I don't know. I'll say this much: Katara's annoying. So, and she's in the show a lot. Sounds like he is salty that no one considers the shows he likes as anime. That's actually what this is. Mother's Basement has a massive chip on his shoulder over, people not respecting the shows he likes. That's one of the reasons why he goes after isekai and harems, because they're popular. Specifically, they're more popular than the shows he likes. And it's the same thing. Like, he wants Steven Universe to be in the same league as Ghibli movies. That's Donghua, not anime. Yeah. Love Avatar, but their Korra spin-off blows. Yeah. Korra really dropped the ball.
American anime is meaningfully distinct from what you'd call cartoons.
Is it?
Now, you might say that the line is a little blurry, and you could make a good case with shorter series that use more American art styles and senses of humor, like Steven Universe and Adventure Time, which, fun fact, had an episode directed by anime director Masaki Yuasa. But when you look at Japanese shows like Panty and Stocking or Kaiba, you realize that it's just as blurry over there. In fact, I would argue that there are animated series made in Japan for a Japanese audience that are not
Oh my god. Anyways, he's gonna start talking about this. He's like, oh, the line is so blurry. When it's really not. Let's see. Man, Steve is not great. Avatar Last Airbender is good shit.
At least not in the loose American sense of that word, which is largely shaped by what satisfies us when we sit down thinking, I want to watch anime, and what we deem worthy of discussion in anime.
He says this thing like, oh, when someone wants to sit down and watch anime, they don't actually care if it's like what? It may be if it's some normie who doesn't know shit, but still.
Anime communities. And when was the last time you heard an American anime fan gushing over Hello Kitty, Hanakappa, or Anpanman?
Actually, Hello Kitty is pretty I don't know how popular she was when this came out, but I mean, these days, she actually is pretty popular. There's been a bit of a resurgence. I mean, there's that Hello Kitty Island adventure game that came out a while ago. And we're going to talk about these other two shows, but when he talks about
if these kids shows are discussed at all, it's never in the context of, have you seen the latest episode of Sazae-san? Those shows are only ever discussed academically in things like this video. Because while you may find it interesting that Sazae-san is the longest running cartoon in the world, I doubt that any of you are actually interested in watching it. Few anime fans are, because it's not anime. It's a cartoon for children. And
this is another thing. He's got like this elitism. He has this elitism about him, but I'll say this much about these kids anime. Like, I'll say Anpanman, because I actually went and I watched an episode of Anpanman when I was going to make a video about this. And in the episode of Anpanman I watched, it was more anime than, say, Steven Universe or any Western cartoon, even the ones that are anime inspired, okay? That one episode of Anpanman I watched had more anime DNA than all of Avatar. Alright, I mean, it had a tsundere. That was something. It had some other anime tropes. So, I mean, look, even you can say that, how most anime fans don't watch these kids' shows, but if we're talking about, anime DNA, yeah, it's definitely in there.
Japanese are capable of producing non-anime cartoons, and we're already allowing for shows out of Korea and China to be considered anime.
Except we aren't. I mean, to be fair, when Mother's Basement was doing this, well, back in this day, he was the frickin' #1 Crunchyroll shell, and Crunchyroll had these shows on their platform, so maybe that's where it comes from. But look, general Western otakus were not considering this stuff anime.
Then there is no good reason that anime can't be produced in North America, or Europe in the case of Wakfu and the Red Turtle. For a lot of people, when they get in North America, or Europe in the case of Wakfu and the Red Turtle.
Okay, so that was the guy who was apparently an anime character.
For a lot of people, when they get an urge to watch anime and they sit down and watch Avatar The Last Airbender or Voltron, they end up satisfied with that decision.
No otaku is satisfied with that decision if they want to watch an anime.
But if we can't define anime by region, how do we define it? It's tempting to say by art style, but again, shows like Panty and Stocking and Kaiba render that invalid.
And these are the shows that he was giving examples of non-anime non-Japanese anime.
And anime definitely isn't a genre. I mean, there are action anime and romance anime and comedy anime. It has genres within it, and there is very little that connects those genres. We could point to storytelling techniques. Anime tends to have an ongoing narrative, but gag series like Osomatsu-san defy that constraint as well. No matter what aesthetic trappings or genre conventions you try to ascribe to anime, there is going to be a point of hard contradiction. I think that's
Unless you just say it's animation from Japan.
because we've
Anime is a medium. Yeah, I define anime as it was published and distributed from Japan. For example, Dr. Stone, author is Korean, but was distributed from Japan. I don't know, was it written in Japanese? Is he like an immigrant or something? Born in Japan? I don't know, you get kind of a weird area there. Like, I would say if it's written originally in Japanese, I would say so. Although, actually, I would say even if... Like, I'll put it this way, actually, because you gotta differentiate manga and anime. I would say if they made an anime based off a, non-Japanese source, I would still say that would be an anime, right? So, whatever. I don't know about that, so...
failed to recognize what anime really is. Some see it as a genre, others as a cultural artifact, and others as almost a medium unto itself. But it's none of those things. It's something else entirely. Something
Get ready for this.
that is only really possible to identify with a lot of hindsight, which is why I find it hard to fault other anime critics and fans for using those terms instead.
What anime is a movement, an artistic movement within the medium of animation, not unlike postmodernism or the French New Wave in film. Everything that makes anime, the big-eyed aesthetic, the over-the-top action, the
Man, he just was saying that we can't define anime based on art style, and then the first example is big-eyed aesthetic.
mature themes, the overt sexuality
Also, mature themes. Not every anime has mature themes.
is a part of that movement, agreed upon collectively by animators across Japan.
Well, it would probably
Across Japan.
be more accurate to say that anime is a series of movements. Post-millennial anime is very different from 90s anime, which is in turn very different from 80s anime and especially Showa-era anime. But there are commonalities between all of them. The anime art style, the serialized storytelling techniques, the way that anime series and movies tend to approach action and romance, the way that anime has turned cost-cutting measures into stylistic flourishes, all of these things are elements of the broader movement, not necessarily parts of the definition. And that definition is murky because, well, all movements have murky definitions. You know a French New Wave film when you see it, but you can argue endlessly about what makes French New Wave, and where the movement began and ended. And you can argue that films influenced by that movement, like the work of Tarantino and the movie Brats, should perhaps be considered part of it.
I mean, like, I definitely wouldn't say so. I don't know, man. It gets kind of stupid if you say that these, artistic movements, which, by the way, any movement in history, it's very grounded in the time that it exists in. So the whole thing, even as, a foreigner or someone decades in the future, maybe even centuries in the future, even if you, say, borrow the tropes, you really can't recreate that movement, in a real way, Anyway. Anime of multiple art styles like moe, I mean, that too, right?
And looking at it in that light, you can very easily make the argument that American anime deserves consideration within the broader anime movement. Specifically,
It's American anime.
the post-millennial anime movement that presently dominates Crunchyroll, and that so famously made Miyazaki declare that anime was a mistake. Each movement within the greater movement
I'm pretty sure that Miyazaki quote is fake. So, interesting.
of anime has its own defining factors. The animators and artists who birthed early anime were inspired by the possibilities of a new medium and the creations of Western contemporaries, but they were also shaken by the impact of the atomic bomb. The animators of the 70s and 80s grew up on a diet of that early anime, along with imported Western film and television. Their work had a certain bravado to it,
Yeah, I know, the quote's not real.
no doubt energized by the unprecedented growth of the post-war economic miracle. They made a lot of cheerful anime and a lot of aggressive, angry work, like Akira and Grave of the Fireflies.
It's like, oh, they made a bunch of cheerful anime, then they made a bunch of angry anime, and they made a bunch of sad anime, and it's like, okay, this movement doesn't really seem that well defined, actually. Anime is... is what I say it is. You will not have distinction between your cultures, and all will be mixed, except for Israel. Yeah, actually, that's exactly what he's doing, basically. Yes, there's no such thing as anime.
90s anime were in turn inspired by those works and Japan's increasingly thriving otaku culture. They leaned even more heavily into both Western and Japanese influences. Their work tended to be
So they leaned more heavily into Western and Japanese influences? What were their influences before?
a bit more somber and philosophical, too, probably a reaction to the economic stagnation of the so-called lost decade of the 90s. If you look at any of these movements, you will see that they are inextricably tied to Japan's culture.
Yes, true. Even to this day, anime is inextricably tied to Japan's culture. That's why whenever you get a Western anime, it doesn't actually feel like anime.
Its economical health and its place in the world. The same is not necessarily true of post-millennial anime, because post-millennial anime is also post-internet anime. It's
Look, and the internet, even to this day, I would say, is still pretty segregated based on country. You know, look at my comment section. You'll sometimes get foreigners in there. It's very rare.
post-globalization.
And look, even in Japan's case, I mean, even with like Twitter, where, you know, they've kind of gone wild with the translation feature, I mean, it's even still not as much as you'd expect.
Anime. And that changes the ballgame. Whether certain segments of the populace like it or not, we are now living in a world with a growing global culture and economy.
You get Americans like myself. Yeah, exactly.
National borders still mean something, but not nearly as much as they used to. We can communicate easily on a daily basis with people around the world through borders and language barriers. I'm doing that right now, and you can help by subtitling this video for your country. As Miyazaki lamented in his famous quote, Japan's millennial animators are primarily influenced by having
It's funny how he doesn't even show the quote because it's fake.
grown up watching older anime, as well as popular Western fare. They are unabashed otaku, making anime for other otaku. They communicate via...
Yes, Japanese otaku are making anime for Japanese otaku. Let me explain how anime is now a global movement. You know, if we're talking about the otaku culture specifically, that is still very insular to Japan.
message boards.
He's so dishonest, no kidding.
They collect merchandise. They are, to be sure, influenced by Japanese phenomena like the falling birth rate, the chronic lack of social interaction.
Interesting how obviously the falling birth rate and then the social...
that has created NEETs and hikikomori, and of course the boom of light novels, but they have many influences outside of that, because like many people around the world, as much as they live in their nation, they also live on the net. And so do the Western animators making American anime like Avatar and Steven Universe.
See, there it is. Steven Universe is an American anime. Hell, the Western otaku hate his POV. Yeah, no kidding.
Animators who also grew up watching anime alongside Western media. Animators who collect anime merchandise.
And look, they also lived in America, which is a culture... Look, this is the whole thing. You know, you're going to be much more inspired by, you know, the culture you live in than by whatever media you consume. You know what I mean? You know, at this point, I pretty much exclusively am consuming Japanese media. When I actually make a work, even when it's anime inspired explicitly, it doesn't actually feel like an anime or like a light novel or manga or whatever. You know, you can tell it's distinct from that. You know, perhaps if I really tried, I could make a replication, right? But ultimately, that's not even what these people are trying to do, okay? When they made Steven Universe, they weren't trying to make a anime. You know, when they made Avatar, they weren't trying to make an anime. They made an American cartoon that had some anime inspiration. Why obsessed with mid-ass show Steven Universe? I have no idea. This guy acts like he's the arbiter of good taste, okay? But then he shills for Steven Universe. Steven Universe is dog shit, bro.
Animators who can't help being influenced by Japanese culture and the history of the...
Hey, how about this, okay? He shits on SAO. At least SAO has good fight scenes. Have you ever seen a Steven Universe fight scene? Holy shit, let's go back, okay?
Alongside influencer media Avatar and the universe. And so do the Western
Let's see,
animators
okay?
making American anime like Avatar and Steven Universe. Animators who also grew up watching anime.
Okay, so that's the legendary American anime fight scene from Steven Universe.
Help being influenced by Japanese culture and the history of the anime movement. They are influenced to the same extent that the likes of Hiroyuki Imaishi and Konosuba's Kikuta Koichi are very clearly influenced by the likes of Ralph Bakshi and the American cartoon boom of the 90s.
What? I think I'm gonna need a source on that one. My art is anime inspired due to my love for moe slang and shoujo style. I mean, yeah.
These animators are contemporaries. They are part of the same group, the same movement. And to talk about modern anime in an accurate and all-encompassing manner, it is necessary to acknowledge that all of them are part of it, and that they have been...
He shows up Teen Titans as if it's not based off a goddamn comic book.
for a long time now. To an extent, I can understand...
Steven Universe is not an anime, not even in a sense like Avatar, where it has heavy influence. It's just a cartoon with certain small influences. Brother's out of his mind. I mean, that's the thing. But that's the whole thing. Like I said, this guy doesn't even care about anime. Honestly, Mother's Basement, he isn't an anime fan. He's a animation fan who just so happens to watch a lot of anime because he fell into the fandom and then he made a YouTube channel about it. He doesn't actually care about anime for what it is, which is why he doesn't view it as unique compared to, say, American cartoons like Steven Universe. Yeah, they literally have Robin. How is that anime? That fight is a joke. How badly fucked up, Jeff. You were doing a great job of convincing me to watch. You know, that's the whole thing. Like, genuinely, Steven Universe is just totally ass.
Understand the impulse to
The most mid-shonen slop completely shits on Steven Universe.
reject these works. It can at times seem like Western animation studios are trying to manipulate anime fans. A decade ago, for every really great series like Teen Titans or Megas XLR, we got two like Kappa Mikey or My Life Me, and even the really good ones didn't quite feel like anime.
So he admits it. Okay, Teen Titans, one of the really good ones, or Avatar, don't quite feel like anime. Yeah, exactly. I wonder why. Man, Steven Universe is CalArts dog shit. No kidding. Fuck, you know, maybe I should make a video on Steven Universe. I mean, I don't know. I'd actually have to watch the show, but it's actually insane. It's basically a show about, like, a little kid getting groomed by 3 lesbians. Hell, 5 out of 10 anime destroys Steven Universe. Look, honestly, yeah. No
but
kidding.
American anime like Avatar, Voltron, and Steven Universe are different.
Steven Universe is different. So is he actually saying that Steven Universe is somehow actually replicates the tone and style of anime to any degree?
They're made with the exact same intention as most great modern Japanese anime, to tell a great story that the anime fans making them would want to watch.
I'm pretty sure Steven Universe was made as just pure LGBT propaganda. I don't know. He's bringing up, I don't know, Steven Universe, I think, had a much more positive reputation back in the day. And the whole thing is that as far as actually good American anime goes, there's very few actual examples, you know, which is why he brings up Avatar, Voltron, and that's like his 3. Because there's barely any. Because, like, honestly, I wouldn't say there's a single actual American show that replicates anime. And the ones that are anime-inspired and good, it's a very short list. It really is just, like, it's basically just Avatar and, you know, grab a few others, Teen Titans, I guess. Because even shit like Voltron, I heard the early seasons were okay, but it just completely falls apart near the end or whatever. Mother's Basement has always been confusing to me. I mean, look, it's really weird. Once you figure him out, it's not that hard, but yeah. Honestly, 1 out of 10 anime can beat Steven Universe. No kidding. Boondocks is anime inspired. I don't know. I mean, it is, but maybe it's too edgy for him.
They may get greenlit by...
You know, actually, that gets even more ridiculous, because Boondocks, I've never watched Boondocks, but... Like, yeah, it is anime-inspired, but that show is basically like a parody of Black America, right? So, are you really going to start making the argument that this show that's about Black America, made in America, very American humor, is somehow an anime just because it has an anime-inspired art style? I mean, that's just wild. At least Avatar has an East Asian-inspired setting, you know what I mean? Like, it's the whole thing. If you start, going down this line of logic, it creates even more contradictions than just the flawed Reddit definition he gave is better than the definition he's building. That's what makes this video insane, is his definition is way worse than the straw man definition he uses. Notice he's scared of that show, yet kept bringing up Steven Universe to no end. Yeah, interesting, right?
Pointing to market trends that
Boondocks is infinitely closer to South Park or Squidbillies than any single anime in existence. Well, yeah, right?
say anime is hot right now, but they are clearly passion projects. They are the exact same kind of passion projects that we see being made in Japan and China and Korea.
He says that, but the intent behind these works is completely different. Like, and you could say, oh, it's made out of passion. And also, by the way, if you're going down this realm of passion, keep in mind, this guy thinks that every isekai and every harem show, it's all just soulless slop. So his definition would actually exclude, at least from his perspective, his definition would exclude a lot of actual anime too. Like I said, a lot of these, isekai shows that come out, he wouldn't consider it if some, vague level of passion is required for it to be an anime. No, Jeff, that's not the same. Miraculous Ladybug would be an anime if we used his definition. Look, he would include it, actually, I'm sure. I think, when did Miraculous Ladybug even come out? This video's from 2017, but... Look, Miraculous Ladybug would probably be better. At least Miraculous Ladybug has some waifus. Code Lyoko is another anime inspired from France. Yeah.
And broadcast on Crunchyroll, and we should be celebrating the best of them alongside FMA, One Punch Man, and Rakugo.
There it is. We should be celebrating Steven Universe alongside Full Metal Alchemist, because they're exactly the same. They're both anime.
Should be giving them pride of place at our conventions, analyzing them in our pretentious video essays.
Fuck. Imagine if you saw Steven Universe at an anime convention. I thought it was already bad when I went to one with some of the cosplayers.
And discussing them in our communities. Not just for the sake of our own enjoyment, but
he says discussing them in our communities. How much overlap actually is there between the cartoon fandom and the anime fandom? Because I don't really think there's that much,
Because the next movement of anime creators, both in Japan and abroad, is watching these works.
Next generation of anime creators in Japan and abroad.
Absorbing them and beginning to build on them as we speak. Looking at today's anime, at all of today's anime, will give us a better idea of what tomorrow's anime will look like. That's why I think it's important to allow discussion of Avatar, Voltron, Steven Universe, and Wakfu in places like our anime. Well, partially. I think it's equally important to facilitate debates about whether the Crystal Gems could beat up the Sailor Scouts, or what rank Aang would achieve in the Hero Association.
Look, no one gives a fuck about those, man. Code Lyoko is another anime inspired from France. I don't want to watch slop, yeah.
Because stuff like that is fun.
And since those discussions are so fun, and since most anime communities don't really allow them, I'd like to see those arguments happen in the comment section of this video. I mean, they probably would anyway, but I'm allowing it. Just, please, use my trust wisely, kids. No biting or hair pulling.
See, this is the crazy thing. This was before the total normie takeover, so anime was still otaku dominated at this point. And otakus, especially when talking about anime, don't give a fuck about Western cartoons. Anyway, no woke slop, please. I tried watching Wakfu. It's bad. I'm sure. Appealing to Reddit, that explains everything. This video is literally the definition of globo homo. Yes, that's right. Japan, you have to abandon this unique artistic creation you have, okay? You have to let everybody make it, because it's all basically the same anyway. Culture, that's just a social... That's just a... Okay, that's not actually real. We're all basically the same. Steven Universe isn't even half the show Rent-a-Girlfriend is. Rag is infinitely more passionate. At least that shit is honest about what it wants. Just noticed his shirt. His opinion is invalidated. Honestly, Rent-A-Girlfriend probably has more character development. Honestly, probably more interesting plot, too.
Promise me that.
Thanks for watching, comment.
Jeff loses his shit on Nekopara until his girlfriend whips him into shape, of course. By the way, she's on OnlyFans. So that's that video. It actually is insane how this is the kind of shit that was getting dropped back in 2017. Oh my god. My definition is if I can show it to my mom and she'll say, is that one of your Narutos? Then it's anime. So that's the top comment. Okay. We'll see. On the Giguk video we watched last time, there actually were some pretty based people. So we'll see if we can find some. Okay, a joke. No Game No Life was written by a Brazilian guy like the original light novels are Brazilian. I don't know if that's true, but No Game No Life, it was written by a Japanese Brazilian who then moved to Japan when he was a kid. So he's actually mixed race, but still half Japanese, I think. This was massively woke take even then. Yeah. Avatar's anime mentions Avatar like twice in over 18 minutes. He probably mentions Steven Universe more. Even if you don't think Avatar is an anime, you have to acknowledge that it's a gateway to anime. I mean, I disagree with that take for sure. Jeff causes a lot of issues in the anime community today, I'm sure. I barely follow him. I don't know, I mean... He did say that One Piece is political, so... All these people in the comments arguing. Avatar's a beach episode. Let me just clear something up. It doesn't matter if Avatar is an anime or not. Being an anime doesn't reduce the show's overall awesome quality. I'd reword that. Being a cartoon doesn't reduce the show's overall quality. Because I think a main reason why he made this video is because he's self-conscious. Cartoons in the West have a bit of a stigma, you know, as being kid stuff, right? You know, ironically enough, anime, it's all mostly made for teenagers, and a lot of it is also made for little kids, but that's the whole thing. Cartoon in the West has a stigma around it. So I think MB is self-conscious that he's watching a lot of these cartoons like Steven Universe, and he thinks that they deserve a more prestigious title. So now he's just trying to steal anime, alright, to sort of make himself feel better. Anyways, let's see. Jeff has always been a corporatist talking head whose bottom line was appealing to the widest audience possible. Of course, he'd love it if Western cartoons were wouldn't it be whatever. Is that even a real word, man? Definitely. Wouldn't you just say definitely? Collapsed under the umbrella of anime. Luffy loves monarchy. True. Avatar is a decent cartoon that Jeff needs to accept this fact. Yeah, so I think that's why he made the video. He really is just stuff. Hank Hill could kill Kirito. Actually, he mentions this. He's like, oh, Anpanman can't be an anime because it's made for little kids. Okay, you do know Precure is made for fucking 5-year-old girls? I mean, if you start going down that route, then a lot of stuff shouldn't be anime. But then you're like, oh, but Precure has a lot of adult viewers. I mean, that's true. But that's a bit incidental, isn't it? Let's see. The frickin' Uncle Iroh quote. If it walks like a duck, quacks like... Oh my god, man. Makes thought-provoking discussion. Okay, so... MB's comment section... Finally someone gets it. So, everything here, it's either a joke or it's positive. I'm not actually seeing very much pushback at all. Which is actually kind of unfortunate, because Giguk's comment section was kind of based on a similar topic. Let's do sort by. Fuck. Anyways, though, yeah, so everyone in this comment section was cucked. Man, pretty wild, actually. Anyways. What time we at? 1:19. I guess we got time for... I think I'll skip the political segment. And we'll do this one. Anime, the global medium, the Kanapa effect. This was shouted out by Giguk in a similar video. So we'll watch this. Azure Lame can be anime. There's more anime than that show, yeah. No kidding. Let's see here. All right.
There are two definitions of the word
First off, fucking Britbong, of course.
foreign. One is the literal meaning that something is from a country other than your own.
Is he British or is he... I think that's British.
And the other is the idea that something is exotic, unknown, or unfamiliar.
Wait.
Country other than your two definitions of the word foreign. One is the literal meaning that something is from a country other than your own. And the other is the idea that something is exotic, unknown, or unfamiliar.
What? Okay, so foreign can either be something not from your country, or it could be something that's exotic or unknown. Also, you know, oftentimes something not from your country or area.
There was a time when these meanings weren't
Sounds like a Cockney British. I mean, maybe.
so separate, where the etymology just made basic sense. Of course, music from Korea would be unfamiliar, they might say, they're 7,000 miles away. But today, K-pop has sparked global appeal, fan clubs, concerts, and that's not to mention K-Con, a Korean popular culture convention that travels the world each year, visiting 7 cities in different countries for 2017. But I bring up K-pop for one main reason, and that's a boy band called EXP Edition.
그대 생각에 영원한 이 순간 난 숨쉬는 이유 We need it to feel like this Feel like this
Beginning as a thesis by Bora Kim, a researcher investigating the global popularity of the K-pop genre, she assembled the group in 2015.
Is this a bunch of white guys LARPing as K-pop stars or something? Is K-pop still popular? Probably.
With the catch that none of the performers were Korean. The experiment has received constant
W-pop.
backlash, with some describing it as an affront to the K-pop subculture, and many recommending they just do normal pop music instead.
Gigabit. Wait. I know, gigabit.
And that's an option. We can just abide by what we know. As someone from Australia, I can just stay home and raise
Oh, he's Australian. Oh no.
kangaroos, but there's something amazing about breaking down borders and globalizing entertainment. And
You heard it here, though. Break down borders. Globalize entertainment. Holy shit, man. Fuck. If I put this in my video, I'm not even gonna have to make any commentary. Oh my god.
if there's one medium that seems to be benefiting the most from becoming a part of global culture, it's anime.
What the hell? If there's one that's benefiting the most. Holy shit. Yo, surprised he wasn't Canadian with a take like that. Yeah, no kidding, bro.
Anime is a global medium.
Anime is a global... Okay, let's double check. 2017, by the way. Oh my god. Okay, I gotta dislike this right now.
Not just in the way that people all over the world enjoy it, but in how it's been adopted as an aesthetic and how people have travelled miles to become a part of it. International licensing has become a huge part of how anime makes money, overtaking merchandise revenue in 2015, and enthusiasm for anime both within the US and China are huge parts of that, especially China.
Less it's benefiting from being part of a culture, more like it's benefiting from the others destroying themselves. Look, that's not even what he means. I'm not even sure if that's what he means.
It's important to talk about China in anime because that market is going to influence the future of anime as producers start talking not just about what would be appealing to those within the domestic market, but also putting an ever-increasing importance on those overseas.
It's so crazy how people would drop takes like this back in the day. Because wasn't even that uncommon. You know, Mother's Basement, That's what his last video was about. Giga said something similar, albeit he was technically more... like, he fenced it on this issue. But it's like, you know... It's one thing for anime to get more popular internationally. It's a whole nother thing to think that changing anime to appeal to the global audience is somehow going to make it better. I mean, why do you even watch anime in the first place if you don't like what the Japanese isms that make it unique? Isn't they thinking about keeping Japan? Look, they don't care. These guys are all, like, globalists, internationalists. They don't... Even though they're liberals and they claim to care about, you know, minorities and or whatever, they don't, okay? You know, when these people say travel to another country, it's all just like an aesthetic to them. Global anime itself is an oxymoron. Thing must appeal to my tastes over Japan's. Yeah.
Producers have constantly referred to their desire to create anime that is popular in America, and viewers have been pulling in huge numbers for Chinese streaming services, even reaching up to 100 million for ReZero on Bilibili.
Interesting how he brings up China, though, because China's more based.
And famously, Your Name hit the box office with $42 million in its opening weekend in China. These are outlier numbers, but they give us an idea of not only the size of the market, but its value. With multiple streaming services available and an audience that they can rely on, bidding wars may result in more revenue entering the anime industry from China. So therefore, it's no surprise that international streaming services...
Look, I'll say this, China is certainly a lot better at replicating anime than America is, that's for damn sure. Never see them mention the race of Kanye.
Are taking the extra step. Instead of just buying licenses to stream the series, they're going straight to the source and aiding in producing it. For example, Bilibili helped produce both Idol Incidents and Akiba Strip, whilst Crunchyroll was on the production committee for Kemono Friends, Masamune-kun's Revenge, and many more. The only reason so many anime can be produced today is that companies from outside the traditional Japanese market are interested and represent the millions of fans that don't happen to live in Japan. There are increasing examples of anime made possible with support from overseas, but there's already endless examples of anime produced by people born overseas.
Okay, let's hear this one. Sweet Baby Inc. will start producing anime then. Fuck. Yeah, now that's gonna be the day. At a time when I was trying to decide what to do in life, how to live this life. All these things that I wasn't able to express in words. That manga, that original story seemed to have all I had to say.
You can go back to the 1990s when Michael Arias moved to Japan to direct Tek on Concrete, or you can talk about just this year where Korean animator Sejun Kim was selected to direct Gundam Twilight Axis. We can go on and on about cultural changes and an expanded global entertainment market, but the simplest fact of the matter is that people love anime regardless of what borders they happen to live within. And if you're not set on leaving home, countries of close proximity to Japan are actively involved in the anime producing business. Whilst there are obviously Chinese and Korean domestic animation, the huge...
He's romanticizing a global reliance on talent, but the reality is that production companies use...
majority of animation produced in these countries are exports. Whilst in Japan, studios will decide on the location for their building based on the proximity of business partners. But the reason many Korean and Chinese studio heads gave for their location was based...
Outsource international labor, especially from third-part Korean studios, as cheap, desperate band-aid to fix a crumbling, underpaid domestic system. I mean, that's the whole thing. You know, Mother's Basement did the same thing. It's like, oh, see, anime is produced in other countries. It's all just a bunch of bitch work that they pay fucking, you know, randos 50 cents. Okay, they pay some Korean 25 cents an hour to do in-betweeners, all right? Because they were paying a Japanese person $5 an hour before.
Basically, it's close to the airport.
Global reliance has done more bad than good. Look at vocalizations. Yeah, that's another factor. Oh my god, how anime beat Disney. Fuck. There's a surprising amount of videos on this stuff.
Furthermore, whilst Korean studios will primarily be sending animation to Japan, the United States or France, they will only contract out to one country each. Put simply, Korean studios that work with Japan will only work on Japanese anime. If you're an American producer, you can't ask this studio to do your work, you'd have to ask one that works on American productions. And when domestic animation is produced in these nations, there's very clear inspirations. To Be Hero's chief animation director Lan told Wave Motion Canon that Japan is a strong neighbour and a role model. Chinese audiences are already used to Japanese animation, so they expect that Chinese animators can make something at the same level. Although when it comes to South Korea, the Japanese aesthetic can be regarded as a political statement. In an interview with South Korean mangaka Tiv, who moved to Japan for her work, she explained that she loved Japanese anime and manga back in school. However, despite the proximity of South Korea to Japan, many illustrators were encouraged to draw in realistic Western styles. In an analysis by Frogkun
What?
for AnimeFeminist.com,
Oh my god, he's sourcing from AnimeFeminist.com! Bro.
they note the identity politics involved in regards to Japan's former colonization that led to the banning of Japanese media for 50 years. But Tiv also mentions her ability to discover new creators through the internet. You can't stop people from loving Japanese culture when it's only one URL away. And
You can't stop people from loving Japanese culture. That's why we need to erase Japanese culture from anime so it can appeal to the global audience.
this is all the more relevant today. I did an article for Anime News Network with the original title being The Anime Influences of Western Web Animators. The purpose of the article was to describe how animators today are using the internet to both find inspirations and publish their own work. And so I conducted a load of different interviews and concluded that anime will largely be influencing global animation from an aesthetic standpoint, because many of those learning animation are learning from Japanese artists online. And just 1 month after that article was published was the announcement of the Castlevania Netflix series, an American production with huge 90s and 80s anime inspirations. Oh, and fun fact, Christian Mays, the animator who made my channel intro, works on it. Amusingly, some people didn't even realise it was an American...
Anime news is not good source at all. They suck at doing their job. All these news sites are awful. Like, imagine going to IGN. Didn't know Canepa wrote editorials for ANN. That explains so much, yeah.
show, with some people believing it was produced at Studio Madhouse. With producer and director Adi Shankar mentioning that he was inspired by shows like Vampire Hunter D and Space Pirate Harlock, the use of the word anime as anything other than geographical identification appears all the more obsolete.
There it is. All the more obsolete. Interesting how you see that contradiction. Oh yeah, people love Japanese culture, that's why they like anime. Oh, but actually, you know, anime isn't just Japanese anymore, it's for everybody. Japanese culture? Throw it in the bin, man.
If you take one animator from Massachusetts whose biggest inspiration is Masayuki Nonika, and another from Fukuoka who was inspired by Shinya Ohira, both continue a legacy of Japanese aesthetics.
Yeah, aesthetics. Okay, you know, look at the writing. You know, because this is the whole thing. You know, America and Japan have very different cultures, okay? And look, you're going to be infinitely more influenced by the culture you live in than, you know, whatever anime, whatever your favorite show is. That's just how it is.
Perhaps EXP Edition's backlash was in its blatancy. The K-pop group's full name is Experiment Edition after all, clearly drawing attention to the fact that the project is something strange, unfamiliar, and using its second definition, foreign. I have a similar worry regarding Indigo Ignited, a short animated film directed by former Pyro animator Henry Thurlow. I'm yet to see anything that strikes out as truly remarkable about the project, but in every instant...
I don't see anything remarkable about it, but it's an anime because they have anime eyes.
It markets itself as the American anime.
A new American anime, and it's so dog shit that not even this guy can run cover.
As if it was something weird and different rather than an anime that can stand next to other projects with confidence. Anime has so many different aesthetics to play into, but like EXP Edition, it's the marketing that seems to place it within this sort of middle ground. Neither an American animation nor a Japanese anime.
It literally would be an American animation, though. What are you talking about, bro?
Schrodinger's anime. This is left in comparison with LeSean Thomas's collaborations in Japan.
You don't even have a clue what's happening to you, do you?
firstly with Studio Satellite for Cannon Busters, and most recently with Yapako Animation on Children of Ether, funded by Crunchyroll.
Funded by Crunch. You know, are we forgetting how Crunchyroll made High Guardian Spice? It's funny how these guys are shilling for all this stuff Crunchyroll did, but then they made High Guardian Spice.
Both productions operate with foreign staff members living in Japan. For Cannon Busters, the mechs were designed by French art designer Thomas Raman, Austrian animator Bahi JD was a part of the project, and the backgrounds were directed by French designer Yann Legar.
Wow, they got like the whole, they got the whole UN on it.
The project will be getting a full 12 episodes next year, thanks to both Netflix, an American company, and Manga UK, a British company. And speaking of Netflix, they recently announced that 90% of their anime viewers are watching from outside of Japan. And then with Children of Ether, it was produced at Yapako Animation, a studio with ties to both the French animation industry and Japan, with studios in both countries. Meanwhile, it's storyboarded by One Punch Man director Shingo Natsume, and the world-renowned animator Mitsuo Iso provided animation for the project. And not once has LeSean Thomas referred to it as a European anime, or an American anime, or labelled it as anime-inspired. It's just anime. And it's anime with confidence and no specific geographical ties. Because foreigners working in the anime industry aren't the exception. One of the best anime sites out there is Francophone Connection, a community of French anime staff who provide facts and tips
What?
for those within the growing French animation world on how to work on the anime they love and all the things they'll need to know about the Japanese animation process. With the closure of many Japanese animation schools, the anime industry is on a path towards global reliance. They will need to take more flights to foreign animation schools in Europe and America to find new talents to help create the increasing workload of anime in Japan. And so, anime is a global medium. Its popularity worldwide has inspired both companies and individuals to want to become a part of what was once uniquely Japanese.
Yes, what was once uniquely Japanese, and he's happy that it no longer is, even though he said the reason why people fell in love with anime was because it was Japanese.
And it's not like anyone wants to change it or mold it into something dramatically different, because those involved understand its inherent global appeal as a storytelling medium.
What the fuck? That's exactly what they want to do. They do want to change it into something different. And anime never really had global appeal anyway. Oh, jeez.
Whether it's producing animation outside or inside Japan, it's something that anyone can be a part of, regardless of what country they happen to be born in. If you want to work in Japan, study your Japanese language skills, because you're going to want to talk to your co-workers.
Yo, why do you need to learn Japanese? They should just learn English, because, you know, that's the language of the world. Actually, they should just learn Esperanto. Okay? They gotta learn we should all learn Newspeak, okay? Because it's all the same. When control is split between Western venture capital, Chinese streaming platforms bound by rigid state censorship, and Korean webtoon factories optimized for fast smartphone scrolling, the individual creator is reduced to a cog. Yeah, no kidding.
And if you want to stay where you are, just start creating. Put yourself out there and make what you love. Thanks for watching the Caliper Effects. Various sources and further reading are included in the description.
Do I even want to look? Oh my god. Of course, 90% of Netflix anime viewers are watching outside of Japan because Netflix just got to Japan a few years ago and isn't as big there, especially for anime, since they have a lot of other services for that. Yeah, that's true. Hearing a lot of yapping, not a lot of meaning from this moron. I mean, that's the fucking whole thing. I don't know. I'm surprised these guys were able to drop these videos without, you know, seemingly that much pushback. Many years to be accepted. It's not a good idea to present a portfolio that contains anime-inspired work. Apparently the leaders hate anime. Okay, I don't really care. I'm not sure if Michael Arias is the best example because he said in an interview that he couldn't have made Tekkon Kincrete the way he wanted outside of Japan. Studios and production companies have different requirements. Oh, this is incredible. So... fuck. I'm kind of worried that anime will become so globalized that there'll be no subs. One of the things... what? It was a different time. Gatekeeping only started in force more recently. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Like, it's easy now to, you know, shit on all these anime tourists, but I would, you know, even the otakus back in the day weren't really that skeptical. You know, a lot of them even celebrated, you know, the popularization of anime to an extent. And look, there was some pushback. We saw that on the Gigak video, like this one. There were quite a few comments with a decent amount of likes, even from 8 years ago, right? But yeah, still though. Look, you just have all these Philistines. I mean, why do you like... It's just so insane. That's the whole thing. They don't actually care about anime. If you can't recognize anime as, you know, uniquely Japanese, then you don't actually care about it. You know, that's the whole thing. I used to be happy that it got popular. I regret it so much. Yeah, no kidding. Fuck. So I guess this guy retired for some reason. What are his biggest videos? I'm curious. Fuck. One of these fucking video essayists. Man, no, I guess that's it for today. Yeah, I want to end the stream pretty quick. Well, maybe talk about this some other time. I think it's this video, my problems with Berserk. Yeah. Anyways, though, that's about it. I don't know, we got like a good clip to end on. There we go. Or whatever, just end it there. I bet that these get people recommends on YouTube, yeah. I mean, still, though, I mean, it really is a shame how people... Man, though. I mean, it is definitely interesting to look back on all this stuff. These were so much simpler times, you know? I feel pretty nostalgic. No wonder Canopus spent his career taking subtle, cowardly swipes at Digibro, who frequently ranted about the death of identity anime due to mass production. I mean, interesting. Am I gonna have to look into Digibro now, too? Is his does he even have videos anymore? I thought didn't he, like, nuke everything? Digibro Archive. I don't know. This guy, he trooned out, right? I'm pretty sure. Oh, he started out as a brony. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the AniTube drama of the late 2010s. But I guess this is like an archive channel of his stuff. I'd have to track it down. But yeah, it's the whole thing, you know, Canapa, you know, Mother's Basement. Like, the only way you can say that, you know, X isn't anime, you know, that anime isn't Japanese, is if you don't actually care about the Japanese parts of anime. And at that point, it's just, you know, at that point, it's, you know, that's the thing, right? It doesn't actually mean anything to you. Let's see. What the hell's the rest of his channel? Is this his channel, Digi Does Anime? I guess so. You can find pretty much every Digi video in his YouTube archive master list on the front page of his main channel, even the unlisted ones. Is this his main channel? Trixie, oh. Trixie the Golden Witch. Yokai, hey. Let's see, so, well, let's see. Did he nuke everything? I guess not. Playlists. Digi, what'd you say it was called? Archive master list. Well, there's actually, yeah, there's quite a bit here. I don't know, you know any, particular videos to look into? Does he have a video about the globalization of anime or something? Which is kind of sad because Digibo's pretty cool username. Trixie Golden Witch, that's a cringe name. Yeah. Archived. I guess this is it, right? Let's see.
Trident Vibes.
Archived. Let's see. I guess I'll look through this. Here it is. Dear Crunchyroll, stop. At least he shat on Kai Guardian Spice. Oh, here it is. What is anime and what isn't? So he did make a video. This is before Mother's Basements. Maybe I'll check out that one. Anime recommendations. Too much anime. His video just completely ripping into AniTube is legendary. Well, we'll see. I mean, it will be interesting, at least, from the video I'm working on, to see. He went for Mother's Basement's head. Yeah. Torn to Giguk. Man, this guy went on a warpath. Yeah, I watched some of his videos way back in the day, but I was never a fan or anything. AniTube Tourist Central. Yeah. Anyone who complains we have too much anime as a tourist, yeah. Not even Glass Reflection was safe, no kidding. But holy shit, there's a shit ton in here. I'll have to look through this all. I heckin' hate fan service. Man. You know, the whole thing with the anti-fan service guy, I understand why women hate fan service. It's because they're jealous. But with men hating fan service, it's all just so performative. It's like, so what? You hate big boobs or something? You hate seeing hot girls in bikinis? Like, what, are you gay? I mean, seriously. Are you? And look, the reason why is that, you know, it is performative because they're only saying that shit, you know, so they can look like a good little boy. All right, they're like, oh, don't worry, I'm not some gross pervert who likes big boobs. Oh, I would never. You know, they're just like metaphorically castrating themselves, you know, to appease women and normies. It's pathetic. Man, and it's like, oh man, it's just so awkward when your parents walk in during a beach episode. Yeah, just imagine if your parents walked in on you while you're watching an anime beach episode. They might think you're straight or something. Like, my god. Well, anyways, though, yeah, is that everything? Well, that's only the first 200 and there's 6. Okay, this is going to take ages to go through. But I'll see what I can find. I'll probably watch this one at least. Beach Scene is not a bad deal. I love that shit. Yeah. Yeah, same here. Anyways, I'll look through all this later. Anyways, thanks for the tip. Yeah, thanks for the tip, Kanye 2028. But I think that's about it for today, because I gotta log off pretty quick. So, yeah, Digibro famously defended lollies and called himself a lolicon, which people use against him to this day. You're telling... Jeez. The thing is that I find it so ridiculous how people tear into him for that, because Giguk is a lolicon too. Alright, he said Arrow Manga Sensei was a masterpiece. Alright? Even though his whole video was a freaking joke, you know, layered in fucking 10... even though his whole video was a joke layered in irony, he still said it was an entertaining show, and he still enjoyed the fan service. And he's also an Ori Emo fan, so the incest anime, it's crazy how selective people are, you know? It's not like Giguk's ever denounced his old otaku ways, but... Anyway, base stream, thanks, W stream. A lot of it is crying about porn to begin with and saying it should be banned and it ruins the world or something. Yeah. I'll have to make a video on that eventually. Look, man, look, porn is a substitute good. Alright, if you fix the dating scene, alright, porn use would go way down. So is the anime man, he just can't say it because of my brand image. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, I do think... Look, Giguk and Anime Man, they both totally sold out, but I do think they are still otakus underneath. Like, even Anime Man called out tourists a while back. I mean, that was kind of based. Digibro tried to debate about Lollygon with some radio show? Like, what? Like a boomer radio show? Or what, like a podcast? I don't know. I mean, look, those kinds of debates are kind of dumb anyway, because look, the people who are anti-lolicon are never going to actually listen to the other side. Oh yeah, a boomer. Oh my god. Why even bother, man? Look, that's the thing. The antis are never actually going to change their mind, so it's kind of a useless debate anyway. And look, you can show them a lot of evidence, because there's quite a bit. They won't fix the dating scene because that would require telling women to change and do something. I mean, that's the whole thing, okay? So many of these tradcons who shit on porn, they're really just feminists, you know, with under a different name. Alright, because they won't hold women accountable. They won't actually change anything. Like, it's insane. Like, I saw this tweet of this guy, this Christian guy, be like, you gotta marry a single mom and be a stepdad. I can't believe this is, the standard take these days. That's why I gave up debating them since last year. Antis are just there to ruin it. The antis are actually insane sometimes, because I saw this one a while back on Twitter. They were spreading around a clip of EDP, EDP the Predator, saying that lolicon was gross. That doesn't exactly help your side. Like, damn. But anyways, though, yeah. But yeah, that's about it for today, though. Yeah, thank you guys all for watching. Like the stream if you enjoyed, subscribe for more content in the future. Yeah, good night, everybody. And, let's see. Anyways, yeah. Anyway, good night, everybody. Thank you for watching. And, good night.